Hey, thanks for showing up, everybody. Sorry for the short notice on this. So, the reason why I'm doing this live is because I made a video about it and I compiled it and I started looking at it and it did not convey everything I wanted to convey. So, I did a second one and it didn't either. So, after the second try, I decided instead of doing a video and doing it and chatting in the live chat, that I would just do a live. Why not? I mean, I got notes right here, so I can keep track of my thoughts and get everything across that I wanted, and hopefully give you guys something that if not entertaining, is thought provoking. Okay, before we start, number one, I am not an expert. The what my opinions here are formed because I am a student of history, um, observation, and I work for the DoD, and I talk with people in the know. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, please. Second thing, there are a lot of people out there on the internet right now, because it is a hot topic, giving their comments and their thought and everything on it. A lot of it, well, I'm going to say a lot of it. Some of it is really well thought out, while other is fanciful at best and just plain stupid and dangerous at worst. So again, when you're listening to people give their thoughts on this, take it with a grain of salt. If you can find something to help you, you know, form an opinion on it or clarify something, great. But don't let people lead you astray by what they're saying. Use your noggin and do a little bit of critical thinking. Okay, now some housekeeping. Number one, like I said, I've got notes, so bear with me when I'm if I'm looking down. I've also got the chat up so I can see the chat. I will do a Q&A session at the end. I want to get everything through. I've got a Bible study at 7, so I want to get through this before 7 o'clock, and I want to get through the main topics as quickly as possible. So if you've got a question, put it all in caps, and after I'm done with everything, we'll go back and read the questions in the order they were posted. Okay, and I'll try to catch as many as I can. Um, my views on the Civil War. This is still part of the housekeeping. My views on the Civil War. Uh, I if a Civil War happens, the overarching idea that I have is it will be the restoration of the Republican form of government as set down by the Constitution. That will be the battle there, and that's unless there's a drastic change in the culture and the climate. Uh, that's the way it's going to happen. And when I start talking about the government and the patriots, because everybody can be a patriot, the Antifa guys think that they're patriots in some weird form. I'm talking about the government against the patriot community, okay? And I'm going to use terms like left and right, and I'm not talking about Dems and Republicans or liberals or conservatives. What I am talking about is level of control. So complete control is on the left, and complete anarchy, no control whatsoever, is on the right. I think most preppers and homesteaders and patriots fall somewhere right of center. A lot of libertarian views, and socially they tend to lean one way or another, but they're usually right of center as far as their politics and the way they look at culture. Okay, so anytime I say left and right, just remember that I'm not talking about liberals and conservatives or Republicans and Democrats, because there's one hell of a lot of Republicans out there that are very liberal. All right. Finally, in housekeeping, we need to talk about possibilities, probabilities, and inevitability. Okay, so possibility. Is it possible for there to be a civil war in America? Yes, absolutely. It's folly to think that the United States is immune to history. And history has shown us that every great empire comes to an end. And most of the time, they come to an end by internal fighting. All right, there's a great it's not really a book. It started out, it was a pamphlet. It was written in the early 70s by Sir John Glubb, called The Search for Survival and the Fate of Empires. And I put the link down in the description to the PDF. It's free online. It's only about 78 pages if I remember correctly, and it's a really good read. And Sir Glubb does a great job laying out the life expectancy of an empire. And if you go read that, you will see that the United States of America is on that timeline, and you can see it very distinctly. So I would suggest, after you're done here, if you've never read it before, go check out the PDF. Like I said, it's free, and it's a really easy read. Okay, probability. Probably not in my lifetime. Now, I know a lot of people think it's right around the corner. My personal opinion is things aren't right for it yet. Now, that could change in a heartbeat, and that could be wrong, but that's why it's probably. You know, I honestly think it's going to happen in my children's lifetime, though. I think that if it comes to a head, it's going to come to a head in their lifetime. Okay, inevitability. Yes, it is completely inevitable. It's going to happen unless, like I said before, there is a titanic shift in the culture and the politics in this country. And quite honestly, I don't see that happening. Now, why do I say it's inevitable? Well, I did a video and I tried finding it, and I cannot remember the name of it. But in the video, I talk about how there's two Americas. There's the America of the Marxist left and the America of the constitutional republic. Simple fact is, two competing ideologies cannot exist in the same space and the same time and not be in conflict. It is inevitable that they come in conflict, and I do not see either one of those ideologies going away in America. It's going to be, there's going to be conflict, and inevitably it will end up in some sort of civil war. Okay, so, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, what I think a civil war is going to look like. All right, before we talk about that, though, I've got to tip over some sacred cows for patriots and preppers. There's some ideas floating out around there, and they've been around for as long as I've been in the community. They're sacred cows that people hold as truths, which are completely false. And people need to understand this, because it's going to come as a great shock to them if they don't. All right, the first one, let's talk about the army of hunters. I've heard my entire life, whenever the balloon goes up, Civil War starts, there will be an army of hunters that come out of the woods and save the Republic. The trope was, back in the 90s, that during hunting season, the registered hunters in Wisconsin formed the fourth largest group of armed individuals in the world. They were the size of the fourth largest army in the world. Great. Simple fact is, stuff hits the fan, we'll be lucky to get 3% of those people to stand up and show up to the fight and put their lives on the line. Everybody else that does not do that is going to stack their arms in their closet, and they're going to sit down and they're going to wait to see what happens. And history shows us that a majority of people in these situations, all they want to do is survive. They don't want to be hassled. They don't want to lose their property. They don't want to lose their life. In fact, there's a scene in the coming Civil War movie that's supposed to be out in April. God, I hope they don't screw that up. Anyway, there's a scene in there where they ask a store clerk, what she thought about it, or why was she involved, something to that effect. And her answer was basically, we don't want to be involved. We just want to live our lives and not have to deal with it. All right. And that's what most people are gonna say. It happened in the Revolutionary War. It happened in the Civil War. And one of the reasons why a lot of people got pulled into the Civil War, North and South, was because it affected so many families directly, and that's why you see people taking sides. Um, Grew up in Missouri, had Battle of Lone Jack. That battle literally had cousin against cousin, brother against brother. It was the epitome of a Civil War battle. So that's how people get involved. But it's not gonna happen. And of those people that stack their guns, you know, there's there's not been any compliance, or very little compliance, I should say, with the Illinois uh, rifle ban, the Massachusetts rifle ban. They have had 2% compliance rate, which is great. A lot of those people are the same people that say, I lost my guns in a boating accident. And this goes back to my 3%. Why I think only about 3% will show up if we're lucky. If you're not willing to stand up and be loud and vocal about your rights now, and we live in arguably the best time for gun ownership in the last 5 or 6 decades. Seriously, if you go back and you look at it without all the hysteria and the hype that the press and the politicians do, we live in a very friendly, or very gun friendly time in our history. And if you're not willing to stand up and say yes right now, when the time comes, and especially after they make a couple of high profile examples out of people, you're not going to stand up then. All right. So if you're one of those people that say that right now, you're the ones I'm talking to about not showing up. Okay. All right. The second one, and this may upset some people in the chat. The military will be on our side. Yeah. Don't count on it. Simple fact is the military is a function of the government. It is tied at the hips at the government. So when the time comes, the military and law enforcement is going to side with the government. Now, there may be defections. In fact, I guarantee you, individual soldiers, if a civil war starts, individual soldiers will desert. They will go AWOL and they will desert. In fact, we may even see full-scale mutinies and desertions of units. Entire units may come over to the Patriot side with all their gear and everything. But the military itself will be on the government side. Now, the best we can hope for as far as the military goes is for the uniformed armed services, the regular military, to sit it out. And there's several reasons why that could happen. Number one, the upper leadership could understand how dire of a move that would be to get the military involved on American soil. The second thing is foreign commitments. They may not be able to. They may have foreign commitments that they have all their troops assigned to, and they simply can't do it. And the third one, who knows why? Who knows why? It may just be somebody may just make a decision. And yes, I say the military is not going to be on our side. And the next question is inevitably, what about the patriots in the military? All right, we need to take a good look at today's military. Number one, they have done a great job of politicizing the upper echelons in the military. It's always been political. You can look through history, and the upper ranks of the military have always been political, but they've done a great job of weeding out people that went against the current politics, the trend towards Marxism. They've done a great job of getting those people out. The second thing, okay, so they got those out. Hang on a second. Let me refer to that. Oh, the second thing, they've done a great job of getting staff NCOs and NCOs that were patriots out as well. Now, you got to understand something. They've either purged the ranks, or they have done a soft purge, meaning that they actively went after people that were patriotic. And you saw a lot of the people that got kicked out of the military during COVID because they wouldn't take the jab. That's what I call a hard purge. They were looking to get rid of people that would not comply. And the soft The soft purge is, you know, a lot of these guys joined after 9/11. They've spent their 20 years in, and they're getting out. They have done their service, and it's time for them to retire and enjoy life, which is great. I think everybody should do it. Everybody that spends 20 years in, and in the National Guard, um, you can spend 30 years in, and they're getting out at 20 now. And I've had conversations. Um, this is where the working for the DoD came in. I had conversations with guys that were getting out, and this is 5 years ago. So this is before the everything got toxic and all the conversation about a civil war came up. And I asked these guys in the National Guard, I said, "Why are you getting out at 20 instead of spending 30 and getting your full retirement?" And a lot of them, multiple deployments, they were tired. They just wanted to be done with it. More than a few of them also tangentially said, "I think there's going to be a civil war, and I don't want to be involved in it." So they're getting out. They 5 years ago, people in the military saw what was happening, and they made the decision that they got out. And so, what's that do? So all these people getting out, they've done these purges, and they've gotten rid of patriotic people and people that will rock the boat at every single level of the leadership in the military. That leaves the troops needing leadership, and all those leadership positions can be filled by people that are ideologically sound in the eyes of the regime. All right, tyrannical governments, even if they run out of recruits, even if they have massive desertions, tyrannical governments will always find people to fill those slots. Now, they may not be the best in the world, they may not be as good as the professionals they're replacing, but they will always find people to fill those slots because there are always people that are looking for security, power, whatever the military can offer them, they are looking for it. The Soviet Union lasted for 75, 78 years, one of the most tyrannical and murderous regimes in the history of mankind, and they had the second most powerful military in the world for over half that time. So don't think that they won't be able to fill slots and put bodies out in the field. All right. Same goes for law enforcement. You know, you're seeing a lot of law enforcement officers uh, either leaving because the radical policies that are being put out by the politicians, and you're also seeing a lot of them get out because of the patriots. People in chat, people that you know, they're getting out because they have been vilified by patriots and told that they are jackbooted thugs and they were not freedom minded. And these guys, I know police officers that are very, very conscientious about protecting the people's rights and doing all that stuff. And eventually what happens is they get tired of it and they say, "Screw you," and they walk off the job. What happens when all those good police officers leave? They backfill it with people that will do what they're told. People that do not care about your rights. You can look, city of St. Louis as a prime example. Joplin had the massive tornado 6, 7 years ago. It may have been longer than that, but they had the massive tornado down there. St. Louis Police Department sent a group of officers down to assist, and within 72 hours, the police chief of Joplin sent them home because they were so bad and they were violating so many people's rights. Sent them home. They did not need that type of help. You know, so they're out there now, and it's only going to get worse. All right, third one, and this is another one that may upset some people. Oh, U.S. troops won't fire on American citizens. Oh, you bet your bottom dollar they will. They will fire on them in a heartbeat. As I said, the complete politicization of the general and field grade officers, the weeding out of patriotic and free thinking senior NCOs and NCOs, they have put people in place that will order troops to fire on American citizens. Now let's talk about the troops. Now, mind you, again, this is my opinion, and it's all based off of anecdotal evidence on my part. Okay, but this is what I saw, and this is what I think. The troops coming out of boot camp, and I was dealing with Army National Guard troops, but they came out of the same boot camp as regular troops did. and I saw the training after they got out, the politicization of the training. Okay, when I got out of boot camp, I understand that I did not know what the hell was going on. And by the standards of the old salty guys in my units, I was clueless. Okay, I understand that. The kids I saw, the unit I was supporting was in Kansas City, and they had what's called the RTR, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the name of that is. It's like Recruit Training Regiment or something like that. And what it is whenever you join the Guard, you before you go to boot camp, unless you've got a slot to go right away, you go to this unit and they teach you how to be a soldier. And then whenever you get out of boot camp, you come back and you go through some more training before you go to your unit. All right. And that's the way they did it there. And my office was literally right down the hall from this unit. So I would see these kids coming in and out all the time. They were clueless. In fact, I thought I was being biased. I thought I was being one of those old hands that was like, these new kids. I thought that. So I went and asked. People in that office, and then in the regular unit that was there. I said, are they as clueless as what they seem? And yes, they are. That was the response I got. And so naturally, the next question as a follow-up was, do you think they'll shoot? If they were told to shoot American citizens, they would. And to a man, every single person I asked said yes, with the right leadership. And I say the right leadership, and I don't mean proper leadership. I mean with a leadership that would tell them to shoot at American troops, they would do it in a heartbeat. And we already saw it happen. There was an incident up in Minnesota, St. Paul, I think, Minneapolis, where the sheriff's department had control over some National Guard troops, and the sheriff's department, the guy said, hit it, meaning I don't know what he meant, but in military parlance, that means light it up. So some 18-year-old kid in the National Guard lit up a passenger car, lit up a civilian car that was driving by after curfew. So I'm sorry. I saw some comments down there. So yes, they will, if they are told to shoot. Now, mind you, I'm painting with an extremely wide brush here. All right, there are still free thinkers in there, and there are people that will question orders like that. But as a whole, if they are told if number one, if they're told that the Patriots are the enemy and they're told to shoot on them, yes, they will shoot. And that goes to the last part of this, the training. So I don't know how it was in other states, but I don't know if the training that I saw was specific for the state of Missouri or if it was something that came down from the National Guard Bureau and the DoD. But the domestic terrorism training they attempted to make it so that it did not highlight any certain group of people. But whenever you read it, and if you read it and looked at it with a critical eye, white patriots were the ones that were the threat. They are the threat to the DoD right now. And you see it in all the documentation, a lot of the training. And to think that won't have an effect is crazy. All right. So there's the tipping the three cows. That Army of Hunters, they ain't gonna come out of the woodwork. The what was the second one? Yeah, U.S. troops won't fire. Yeah, you bet your bottom dollar they'll fire on us. And will the military be on our side? No, the military as a whole will not be on our side. See, I told you I needed my notes, right? All right. So next, what will precipitate a civil war? What will cause it? I see two scenarios. I see two scenarios as the most likely. The first scenario is an economic collapse. And what happens if you look at economic collapses as they happen throughout the world and history and here in America, what you see is the center of gravity of government starts to shift from the centralized federalized government to the local government. And eventually at some point one of two things happens. The economy gets better or it doesn't, and the government decides to take back control. And so they will start becoming, they will not let a crisis go to waste, if you will. So they will start trying to get more and more control, and it will become tyrannical. That is the nature of government. Government's sole purpose in its existence is to grow and survive. That's its sole purpose. There's nothing else out there. Everything else is just made so that that can happen. That's why if you look at any governmental disaster recovery plan, the first thing that they're concerned about, and about the only thing they're concerned about, is continuity of government. Everything else is secondary. So don't think if something happens, the government's going to come and help you out. All right, it's going to come and it's going to try to assert control. All right, so that's the first one. So the government will try to come back, and that will cause friction because people are going to get some taste of freedom and liberty, and they're going to start understanding that the federal government's really not that necessary, and it's time for us to start taking our rights back. And so that's the first one. The second one, a nationwide disaster, either man-made or natural. The loss of infrastructure that happens during a nationwide disaster like that will cause the powers to be to try to maintain control. And when they can't do that, they will turn outward looking for help. And they will ask the international community to come help. And what will happen is they will send aid to the United States. It'll come in from both coasts. The EU and China will be more than happy to do this. And as part of that help, they will require security for their people, and they will send military. We will have, if this scenario happens, we will have foreign military on land in America. And the lefties, the Marxists, the globalists in the government will welcome them with open arms. And the scenario I see is the West Coast and New England states, because that's where the power centers are as far as that type of stuff, right? And the people out there that are just trying to survive, chances are when those foreign help comes, even with the foreign military, they're going to welcome it with open arms. All they want to do is survive. Just like I said at the beginning, they don't want to be involved. They just want to survive. All right. And so that would precipitate it as well, because there's a lot of people, and I know a ton of you in the chat think this way. That's not going to happen. You're not going to let that happen. You're not going to lose sovereignty. You're not going to let them take your sovereignty, which is exactly what will happen, because they can't have you running around. If there's a nationwide disaster and people are dying because they're starving or under 10 feet of ash, they cannot have you running around not doing what the government wants. Okay? Plain and simple. All right. Now, there is a third one. There is a third scenario, but I don't think it's very likely. And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna go through it because it's a possibility, but I honestly don't see it happen. If the government decides that they're going to confiscate weapons, if they decide the Second Amendment does not count and they're going to start confiscating weapons. Now, why do I think this is going to happen? Number one, logistically, they don't have enough people. They have to rely on local help for the raids they've got now. If they try to do it on a national level, there's no way they could do it. There's no way they could do it. All right. So if something changed, there's always a possibility that the tone in America could change, and all of a sudden they've got support for something like this, and they're crazy enough to start doing it. That could precipitate something too, because there's a lot of people that will say no, not just hell no, but All right. So that's how I think, or what precipitates it. Now, who will the actors be? All right. So I have the patriots and their allies. You'll have pro-government forces and their allies. You'll have irregular militias. That's the state-sponsored. There could be a state-sponsored militia. I know Missouri has a provision for a state militia. It could be National Guard troops that form a militia for the state, or it could be paramilitary groups for the state. I'm sorry, those are the irregular and the paramilitary are the irregular forces, and the organized militias are the the National Guard troops and the state sanctioned ones. Okay, I'm sorry, misread my notes. Okay, the next the next group is the uniformed armed services, the regular military and law enforcement, and then the uninvolved people, the uninvolved populace in the United States, and then finally foreign assets. Okay, now I'm going to go back. The National Guard troops forming the militias in the states. That will happen if National Guard units refuse federalization. If they say no, because what'll happen is the federal government will try to federalize all the National Guard troops so that they've got control of it, and you'll have states that say no, you don't get our troops. You cannot have our troops. So they will form the militia for the state. All right, and then foreign assets could be foreign troops. During the Revolutionary War, we had the French on our side, the Germans on the British side. Trainers, much like the United States, these other countries have special forces guys that go in and train irregular troops on asymmetric warfare, and so to think that they won't show up on our shores is ridiculous. And then agents, there will if a civil war happens in America, every single country in the world will send assets to the United States to garner as much information and to try to mold it as much as possible. You'll have spies, you'll have agent provocateurs trying to agitate people. You name it, it'll come into play. All right. Now, let's talk about what I think a coming civil war may look like. But before we do that, let's talk about what I think it's not going to look like, because I think this is important. At least not in the beginning, it won't look like this. I don't think that the next civil war is going to start out with big standing armies facing off against each other in set piece battles like you did whenever the Civil War kicked off after Fort Sumter. I don't think that'll happen. You know, if you look historically, go back to the border states in the 1850s, Kansas and Missouri. So there was a lot of interscene warfare going on there, and that was the precursor to the main show. So that is what I see happening, and I think any civil war that happens in the United States, that most of it, if not all of it, will be that type of interscene warfare, especially if the uniformed services decide to sit it out on the sidelines. Now it may eventually evolve to where the Patriot side can stand up against the federal side, and you may have set piece battles then, but that, in my opinion, not very likely for a very long time. All right. So let's talk about what I think the Civil War looked like. Now, this is what you guys came for. All right. This is what it may look like. As I said, look to the border states, Missouri and Kansas, in the 1850s to see what it's going to start out like. You're going to see public clashes by fringe elements of the political spectrum. The government response to rising tensions. They'll do things. This anti-militia bill that everybody's all up in arms about is a prime example of what may come out. So the anti-militia bill is not just aimed at the patriot side of the equation. It's also aimed at the Marxist side of the equation, because they are, whether you know it or not, they are getting armed, they are getting training. If you go back and review Antifa and BLM rallies where they had armed guards, go back and look at the first ones from 2018 and go look at ones that are happening now, and you'll see a complete change in the people they have running security. And the people that are running security are well equipped, well armed, and they look like they know what they're doing. All right. So that's something to look at. One of the scenarios I mentioned that can happen in the future. Hang on a second. Let me refer to my notes here. So okay. So the two scenarios that I laid out for what precipitated. The common thing between the two of them is the loss of infrastructure, and it would weaken federal control. Uh, like I said, a government's purpose is to survive and maintain control. And as that happens, as this interscene warfare goes on at the beginning stages of any civil war, the government will start cracking down on that. Now, they will not crack down evenly. We know that for a fact because the way they treat certain corporate rioters, the fiery but mostly peaceful type, or the people that were invited in for a tour that tried to overthrow the government without any guns. We see how differently they treat them. So yes, they will crack down on the people that are a threat to the government, constitutionalists, uh, gun people, gun enthusiasts, and freedom-minded people. Anybody that speaks out for freedom. Now, why do I think the asymmetric warfare? Asymmetric warfare is the easiest and cheapest way to take on a bigger opponent. And in any scenario, any way you cut this pie, in any of those slices, the federal government will always be the bigger opponent. They will always be the big kid on the block. So you have to take them on in a way that you can survive. And we've got a generation and a half of veterans that are well versed, well practiced in asymmetric warfare. They not only through their experience know how to combat it, they know how to wage it. And to think that that expertise will not come into play on both sides of the political equation there, you know, on the irregular leftist forces and the irregular patriot forces, you know, it's going to come into play, and people will start doing what they'll see. And what we'll see is assassinations, arson, ambushes, things like that. You'll see increased crime as these organizations try to get funding. They try to get money. It's historically that the irregular units resort to crime to fund themselves. You know, and so that makes the government crackdowns worse, right? Once this has been going on along, you're probably also going to see foreign money and foreign supplies and weapons come into play. You'll see them come across the border. In fact, it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me one bit if a civil war started, patriots against the government. It would not surprise me to see Chinese AKs showing up in patriot hands, because they will the Chinese will use it as an opportunity to destabilize things by arming the side that's going against the government. All right. Let's see. And then of course, you know, that they also may send stuff. Like the Chinese could send stuff to the government too to help fellow travelers. They might support leftist irregulars. All right. So there's that one. After that's gone on a while, what I see happening at that point is a breakup, not necessarily a national divorce, but a balkanization of the country, kind of like 1990s Yugoslavia. Okay, but I don't think that in America it's going to be ethnic like it was in Yugoslavia. I think it's going to be more along the lines of rural versus urban. And that's simply because the urban areas, for the most part, and again, wide brush, urban areas are mostly leftist. They're on the left side of the equation, and rural areas tend to be on the right side of the equation, looking for more freedom. All right. Now, there may be some racial aspects in this, so don't think that race will not pop its head up. We already see it. It's already happening now when we're not in a civil war. And to think that it's not going to happen in the future, if something does go down, is ridiculous. We've already seen in LA, Mexican gangs, Hispanic gangs taking out black gangs and then forcing black residents out of entire neighborhoods, you know, through threat and intimidation. We that goes on already. And as far as the Southwest goes and the Hispanic aspect of it all, if the cartel decides to nationalize a little bit and start, oh, excuse me, start caring about that, if they start thinking about setting up Aztlan or doing the Reconquista, you could see full scale warfare along the southern border as they try to push all the gringos out, and they will genocide people that stay. You know, the cartels have no problem murdering their own people. What makes you think they won't have a problem murdering American citizens to get what they want? Um, and then the other one is if the Muslim population in America gains plurality. Historically, anytime the Muslim population in a country has gained plurality, they have persecuted and committed genocide against the people that were not Muslim or the same ethnic groups. So it happens. All right. So that could be the racial aspect. And I'm not letting white folks off the hook either. You know, there's still some people out there that like the Stormfront and all those people. There could be white supremacists that pop up and decide to start doing stuff too. You know, so any civil war and breakdown of society like that is going to bring the crazies out, and you're gonna have to deal with them. All right. Now, a lot of the combat will take place in and around urban areas because that's where most of the people are. And if you look at the population density of the United States, most rural places, everybody's around around cities, so that's where most of it's going to take place. Don't think that rural people will not be affected though, as far as the warfare goes. You know, we're not going to be immune. We may see things like present day South Africa, where the economic freedom fighters call for the killing of white farmers and the taking of their land. In the last decade, there's been something like 1,900 white farmers murdered on their homesteads, on their farms. So that could happen. If you look at Argentina in the early 2000s during their economic collapse, they didn't have a civil war. This was just the economic collapse. Um, Farmers were targeted by gangs constantly because they would catch these people out in the middle of nowhere, they kill them, go to their houses, and take everything that was there. So that could take place. And then there's already existing EOS executive orders out there for the government to take resources that it needs, and there's already orders out there, so the government's already thought about going into the rural areas and taking what they need, requisitioning it, if you will. Um, so it's gonna happen. Now, when this breakup happens, we're gonna start seeing more organized military units. We saw it in Yugoslavia, where units defected from the federal military, and they started forming the core of regular uh, ad hoc units. All right. So we're going to start seeing more heavy weapons coming into play. The Patriot side is going to get more access at this time to heavy weapons vehicles and things like that. So you're going to start seeing more traditional style. I don't want to say traditional, but you're going to see more organized warfare going on. The asymmetric warfare will still take place, but you're going to start seeing more things happen with organized units and units trying to maneuver against each other. And then when this happens too, as I said, the different power groups are going to roll these military organizations or the military structure into their sphere of influence, and they're going to use them, right? They're just going to use them. Okay, so that brings us to the end game. So once this has gone on, what happens next? First off, it's going to last a long time. All right, it's going to last a long time. The asymmetric warfare, like I said, will go through most of it. Eventually, there may be set piece battles. Um, After that, I don't know. I honestly, the only thing I'm certain of is it will be bad, and we cannot be sure of the outcome. So if you're one of these people that are chomping at the bit for a civil war, be careful what you ask for, because there is no guarantee that what comes out the other end is going to be favorable to the Patriot side of the equation. All right. You know, no matter what happens, whether the Patriots win or whether the forces of evil, the leftists, whatever you want to call them, the government wins, America will still be here, but it will not look like what it looks today, and it probably never will again. Now, the if we're able to come to a stalemate and come to a separation where we get that national divorce that everybody's talking about, and states cede, and all that happens, the American nation, not the United States government, the American nation will survive. And there's a very good possibility in that case that some form of Republican government based on the Constitution reestablishes itself, and people will migrate there, and we can start anew and try to rebuild. All right. So that's my thoughts on the Civil War. Now, that was a lot of black pills. I threw a lot of black pills down your throat. And if you've been around here for any amount of time, you know that I don't like throwing black pills without feeding you some white pills. So what can we do? What can we do to insulate ourselves from what may happen? Chances are if it happens, it's going to touch all of us. In fact, I guarantee it's going to touch everybody. But we can insulate ourselves, and we can make it so it's not as bad for us as it is for the people that don't prepare. Number one, this is old hat for you guys. Anybody that's been around, you've heard this before, and you need to hear it again. Number one, community. As I said, the center of gravity will fall away from the federal government and will become local. We need to get involved in community. We need to be able to mold our communities now so that they're freedom-minded, liberty-minded. So when the time comes, people will understand what needs to take place, and you can hopefully get more people involved if they're not carrying guns. If it comes to a shooting thing, if they're not carrying guns, they're giving you willing support, and you're not having to go out and requisition supplies. Because guerrillas live off the populace. As Mao said, the gorilla should be fish swimming among the sea of humanity. All right, the sea of the populace. All right, so community, and again, when hard times come, when you've got community, you're never alone. You're never alone if you've got community. Number two, food independence. You need to start working on food independence, and that's community helps you do this. And the reason why I say food independence is because throughout history, food has been the most effective weapon for tyrannical governments to use against its population. The Holodomor in Ukraine in the 1930s, 4 million people dead. Sudan, the starvation crisis, the crisis in Africa during the 70s and 80s, those were all man-made. Those had nothing to do with the climate. Those were all man-made because the government was using food against the people. And America's done it. So we're not innocent in that respect either. Third thing, start creating alternative economies, because when the time comes, the economy is not going to exist in the form it does now. Again, collapse of the economic collapse, nationwide disaster, whatever, loss of infrastructure. We need to start building these things now. We need to start practicing it and making sure we keep as much money and resources within our community as possible, so that when the time comes, yes, local prepper, freeze-dried Skittles will keep you going at 0 dark 30. Eat enough of them, you'll be wired. Better than coffee. So we need to make sure that we're getting alternative economies and husbanding our resources right now, so we've got them. Lastly, and this one a lot of patriots need to understand, and you need to step up and start doing this, in my opinion. You need to learn why you're fighting. All right, you need to understand. Saying that the tyrannical government is bad is great, but if you don't know why it's bad and you cannot articulate it, you number one, you're going to be nothing but cannon fodder for somebody, because somebody with a plan and a purpose will grab you and get you to do what they want you to do, or what they want you to do. So you need to learn why you're doing what you're doing, and start now. All right, because it's the best time in the world. We've got the internet. We've got people out there willing to share and share their experiences and help guide you through it. That's what you need to do. All right, and I'm going to say, get right spiritually. right? Get right with whatever your higher power is, and get right spiritually, because that will give you the strength to weather the uncertainties and hard times that may be coming. All right. So that's it. That is it for my thoughts on the coming Civil War. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask me about anything I talked about? If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, if you got any questions about anything, go ahead and post it now, and let's see if we can't talk about it. We got about 10 minutes that we can go through this. If anybody's got any questions, we can do it. While we're waiting, if any questions come, you want to support the channel, go to gruntbakersfarm.com. You can get a cool hat like this. This was made by Ghost Designs. He makes great stuff. He makes all our t-shirts that we sell at the festivals. We've also got a t-shirt shop on Bonfire that's got some different designs that he can't do yet, because he's only able to do a 4-color, where some of these other ones are 6-8 color. So you can go to Bonfire. All those links are down in the description below. Really appreciate you guys coming. I hope you enjoyed it. All right. No, it doesn't seem like anybody's putting any questions out. So I'm just going to wrap this up so I can go get something to drink before the Bible study. If your faith has doubts about self-defense, Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Potpourri. I appreciate it. How do I see the food supply being affected? Well, as I said, infrastructure will be destroyed, so it will not be flowing. And where it does flow, the government will control it. That's unless we build food independence. That's a simple fact of the matter, right? I think this year, Rabbit says, by the way, hello to everybody in chat. I just on a timeline, and I just wanted to get through this, and I do appreciate everybody coming here. I think this year will be very important to get to meet as many like-minded people as possible. Absolutely. You're too late. If you haven't started building community, you're too late getting to the party, but the party's still going on. Does that make sense? You still got the opportunity. You can still build community through these times, right? And the cool thing about it is you've got people like Les that have been going out and talking about community and building community. You got our expertise to lean on, and we can help you, and we can help you form communities much quicker and get them up and running quicker than otherwise. You got people out there, and I'm not just talking about you and I. In our community, there are people out there. Kentucky Sustainable Living, they do it. Spags Unfiltered is a great resource that I can talk. And just there are a whole bunch of people out there doing it. So lean on them if you got questions. Feel free. And I know for a fact that every single one of them would love for somebody to ask a question. In fact, I said it on Zach's Unique Prepping podcast the other day. The biggest kick I get from going out and doing the festivals is when people come up. We've seen them several years. They come up to us and they say, we started our own community. That's the biggest kick I get, man. That is what makes it all worthwhile, right? Just trust me, going to those festivals is a pain in the butt. Love it, love meeting everybody, but it's a pain in the butt. So okay, so that's about it. If I can get back to the thing, that's about it. Yeah, Satan Hunter. People don't plant crops in war zones, and when they do, chances are they get destroyed. Look at the front line in Ukraine right now, and look at how much damage. In fact, the Russians have purposely attacked the farming infrastructure. Okay, guys. Okay, All American. I'm not going to put that up, All American. I do not advocate cannibalism on any account. You're crazy, man. You are insane. That's why we love you, man. Don't change. Yes, having many skills is very important. More importantly, though, community will magnify those skills. You'll have people that have the same skills or different skills that will magnify your abilities. Okay, guys, I hope you found it enjoyable. If you're not a subscriber, as I said before, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'd love for you to come join us on our journey towards a life done free. And at the end of the day, I think you'll find it beneficial. Dogs are delicious. You know what? I've been to Korea. So yeah. if you end up there, it is an alternative. All right. Till next time. Oh, Monday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Be back here. I'm gonna have the one and only local prepper. I will have Jester from It's Doomsday Podcast. If you're not a subscriber to him, go check him out. I had never subscribed to him, and I started listening to him. He's got some good stuff. If you're a prepper, he's got it. And the last one is Dale from Survivalist Prepper, who is a longtime prepper, who has a lot of insight into it. All right, so be there. And then the following Wednesday, as I said before, I've got Spags. We're going to talk about how being nice does not make you a good person. So if you're out there thinking that you're nice and that you like dogs, so did Hitler. All right, guys, you take it easy. Have a great night and go out tomorrow and live a life done free.